Al, this one's for you, my friend. Today we're talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins and going over just what exactly could be in store for the team heading into the next season. Now, the big overarching theme of this video is blow it up. Should the Penguins blow it up? Will they blow it up? Could they even think about the possibility of quote-unquote blowing up the team? Because, hey, let's face it, in their most previous 10 playoff games, the Pittsburgh Penguins have only won once. That's the 3-1 loss against Montreal. That's the 4-0 sweep against the Islanders. That is the final two games where they lost against the Washington Capitals in the second round in 2018. The Penguins have not been the same powerhouse that won the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row. Ever since Kuznetsov did the thing in the overtime, it's kind of been downhill from there. At least when you're talking about the postseason. And with the loss to the Montreal Canadiens, the Pittsburgh Penguins are in a weird spot. Because the way they played in that Montreal series, a lot of people would say was not really to the best of their ability. People were really frustrated with their loss to Montreal, not just because the Canadiens found a way to actually win, which was in itself kind of crazy, but because the Pittsburgh Penguins were the team that they beat. And the Penguins were one of the best teams in the regular season this year. In fact, they were 7th overall in the league standings. And they just lost 3 out of 4 games to the team that was literally 8th last in the entire league. A team that many questioned their presence at the return-to-play format. They lost to a team that many were projecting to be a potential first overall pick caliber team. And instead, the roles were reversed. So now, with the Penguins' unfortunate playoff woes, and with their extremely shortened presence at the return-to-play format compared to what people thought they would be able to do, is it time for a team with a 33-year-old Sidney Crosby, with a Malkin and Letang that are not getting any younger, to finally take a step back and blow up the team? Let's go over to The Athletic and check out an article over here written by Josh Yohe. It's titled, Staying or Going? The Annual Penguins Most Likely to Leave List. Now, because this is on The Athletic, we're not going to screenshot excerpts and put it on this video. We'll leave a link in the description to the article, so if you do have The Athletic, you can go ahead and read that. But we're going to be heading over to Spectors Hockey once again. There's an article over here from August 15th, written by Lyle Richardson on Spectors Hockey, that goes over Josh Yohe's article and writes about the points that he makes. We'll use this for reference over here because it's available online for free. So, let's take a look at what Josh Yohe says about the Pittsburgh Penguins. The report is that rival team executives from around the NHL believe that the Pittsburgh Penguins GM Jim Rutherford could explore trading Chris Letang, despite him saying that he wanted to keep the blue liner among his core players. One executive around the NHL claimed that Letang still has value in the trade market. And that's something we did see. We did see that Jim Rutherford came out and he said that he is not trading Chris Letang. Okay, end of story. At the same time, have GMs lied about keeping players and trading them later in the future? Yes, it's happened before, but the fact is, apparently, according to sources, people do believe that there may still be an offer on the table to be made. For Chris Letang, he is a 33-year-old right-handed defenseman. He's got 2 more years left at $7.25 million. And what is there to say? We know who Chris Letang is. He gets 40 to 50 points every single season. He had 0 points against the Montreal Canadiens in the postseason this year. And if there's a trade to be made, what the team in return is getting is a right-handed defenseman who can be a lethal number 1 power play quarterback, who can log big minutes, and who can produce points. I remember when Erik Karlsson had that crazy 80-point season, and the Penguins GM came out and he said, even if you offered me a 1-for-1 trade, Letang for Karlsson, I would say no, because that's how much I value this guy here. And for the most part, with Jim Rutherford saying that he doesn't want to trade Letang, I honestly kind of believe it, but at the same time, if you want to talk about a Letang trade, these are the specs about it. If the Penguins wanted to trade this kind of player, I honestly don't know what you would get in return. Sure, he's kind of old, but he's still elite, and he's still capable of being one of the better defenders in the entire league, so the price on that, I'm not too sure. But going forward with the Spectors Hockey article, there also are reports that the Penguins' decision to release assistant coach Sergei Gonchar isn't a sign of renewed strain between head coach Mike Sullivan and Evgeny Malkin, who is close to Gonchar. There also are reports that Sidney Crosby said that he doesn't want Malkin to be traded, and Malkin also said he wants to finish his career in Pittsburgh. So, that's the big three right there. Malkin, Crosby, Letang. They're kind of exempt from this discussion. Not really supposed to be on the trade block, not really realistically going to be on the trade block, but if you wanted to argue whether or not they could be traded or should, that's up to you in the comment section below. However, this is kind of where things get a little bit interesting because Yohe believes Matt Murray could be on his way out, suggesting he needs a change of scenery. He also anticipates Rutherford will find a way to move center Nick Bjugstad, and he doesn't rule out McCann or Aston Reese becoming trade candidates either. Matt Murray's probably the biggest one here because when it comes to a change of scenery, there's nobody in my mind who could use a bigger change of scenery than Matt Murray. We talked about that Murray for Anderson trade idea that Nick Kyprios brought up on his own podcast earlier in the week, but Matt Murray to me is the guy that everybody has been kind of seeing as the obvious choice if you're looking to make a Penguins trade. He's been beaten out in the crease by Tristan Jarry, he didn't look all too great against Montreal, his contract is up, so is Jarry's, so that kind of puts you in a position where you're forced to make a decision. And if I was a betting man, I'd put money on it being Jarry going forward. So, Murray is probably going to be on his way out. Obviously, the legacy with 2 cups that you're leaving behind there on the table certainly kind of stings, but the matter of fact is that Jarry is just the hotter goaltender, and he's been the better one over the past calendar year. So, in a do-or-die situation where they're both up, you gotta go with the one that you think is gonna give you the best chance of winning, while Crosby, Malkin, and Letang are still on your team. Nick Bjugstad has been a guy who a lot of Penguins fans I've been seeing have been kind of harping on. He doesn't really do too much. He's got $4.1 million on the cap. He's got a year left, so there isn't really too much value in looking into the long-term future with Nick Bjugstad. As for Zach Aston Reese, he's a guy who kind of contributed to the Montreal Canadiens' success in the play-in series because he did have a few bad plays. As for Jared McCann, he is an RFA to be, and towards the end of the season we saw less and less of Jared McCann, especially as things started to look a little bit more poor in the Penguins' favor. So, because he's an RFA and because you can get value for this kind of guy, I could totally understand the value in seeing a Jared McCann trade in the short-term future. Going over onto the other parts of this article, Yohe doesn't believe that pending UFAs Justin Schultz, Patrick Marleau, and Connor Sherry will be back. And that's kind of a big hit just taking a look at the overall connotation. Not necessarily the on-ice product itself, but just what people believe these kinds of players mean to the team. Justin Schultz, when he's good, but he hasn't been as good as he could be throughout the past few months' worth of play. Patrick Marleau was the guy that was traded over to Pittsburgh because, hey, he wants a cup, the Penguins want a cup, if they can get a cup with him, that's good. Connor Sherry is a guy who honestly had some really good looks in the Montreal series, but he gets shoved off the puck a lot, man. It's just kind of different with Connor Sherry today, especially compared to a few years ago. But with these discussions underway, what you're taking a look at is the potential of Matt Murray to be traded, potential trades in Aston Reese and Jared McCann, plus an expected projected departure of Schultz, Marleau, and Sherry. Those are all pretty significant pieces to your hockey team. Sure, they're not Sidney Crosby, Letang, or Malkin, but they're still could be defined as fair value by other NHL teams. In this respect, I can understand the perspective of calling it a blow-up of the team in general. But obviously a blow-up kind of insinuates that a huge piece could be on the move, and you could debate that Matt Murray is indeed that piece, but when people are thinking of a Penguins blow-it-up scenario, the first names that come to mind are, of course, the older guys Malkin, Letang, Crosby. With the assertions, though, earlier on from Jim Rutherford that there will be no Malkin trade rumors unless somebody makes them up, or that he's not going to trade Letang, it kind of says to me that they're retooling on the fly here, trying to get the best kind of team forward so that Crosby, Letang, and Malkin can go out, end their careers off, still remaining competitive, so they won't ever have to experience what it's like to actually be on a quote-unquote bad team. So to end off this video, I'll go off on this note. The Penguins chose to keep their draft pick for this year instead of giving the Minnesota Wild their draft pick for next year. What they're doing in this case is betting on themselves, because what they're saying is that they think their pick this year is going to be more valuable than their pick next year. The implication is that they feel they're going to be better next year than this year, and that is the right mindset to have when going over with a team that still has superstars that you want to build more wins around. They feel they're going to be better next year, so they're going to keep their first pick this year. So, talk to me in the comments below what you thought about the players we talked about today. Crosby, Letang, Malkin, not to mention the other guys like Matt Murray, Jared McCann, Zach Aston Reese, and the UFAs as well. What do you think is going to happen to the Pittsburgh Penguins? What do you think of the potential moves they could make? And let me know what you think you would do if you were in this situation. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.